Hi, Sebastian here, Associate Director at Academic Resources. This is a first in a series of videos in which either I or someone from our team will attempt to offer unscripted, hopefully practical advice based on some of the questions that we get most of the time from parents and from students alike. And the first question I want to address in this first video is a little bit in jest, but it does point to something very important. The question would go something like, hey, how can I save money on tutoring? How can you save me the time that I need to spend with a company like yours to prepare my son or my daughter for a standardized test, for example? And the answer to that question is by making sure that we pay attention to the difference between education, as in just the pure act of going to school, and the actual learning that is going on in that school. I'll give you an example that I use with my students to kind of enlighten that point. I ask, how many years have you studied a foreign language in school? And undoubtedly, I speak mostly to sophomores, juniors, and seniors myself. Undoubtedly, they say, oh, since third grade, since sixth grade, and seventh, every year I go there and I sit in Spanish class or Italian class. So I say, oh, well, great. Then if it's been, more than 4 years, you'd think you'd be pretty fluent, or at least fluently conversational. Dead silence. The point is that just because we go to school doesn't mean that we're actually learning anything. And the problem with the standardized tests specifically is that whereas in your English class or your math class, there might be mechanisms that either you can use or that simply allow you to move from grade to grade with sometimes very good grades, in fact. The moment you get to standardized tests, there is absolutely nowhere to hide a deficit in learning. The passages will not be able to be read 5 times until you get them right. The math problems have to be done 60 problems in 60 minutes. There's nowhere for me to get a formula, etc. So you see the difficulty. So our advice always is this: to use us the least possible. Keep track of whether there's actual learning happening with your daughter or son. Not just the GPA. The GPA is a very important part. And schools differ in their requirements and their demands of getting a specific GPA. But to really prepare them for college, ergo for these standardized tests, it is important to track and see if indeed, for example, they read the books in English class or just schmoop it. They do the math homework and understand the concepts. Emphasis on understanding the concepts, not just completing homework. Again, speaking specifically about standardized tests, it is relatively easier for us to take a student who perhaps has a little deficit in algebra or a particular part of geometry and catch them up with that. Math is of that nature where filling in learning gaps is somewhat more doable in a relatively short period of time. If the student is willing to work and practice and catch up to those things that perhaps they've missed or weren't perhaps taught. But the problem is definitely pronounced in reading comprehension, reading ability. Not so much even grammar, but reading ability. As I'm sure we all know, that is a organic growth, an ability that grows with doing over time. It is practically impossible to get somebody to read at a level that would be sufficient to have him have a happy time or a score that they want on the ACT or the SAT. If they've, and I'm using an extreme example, if they've never read a book in their lives. We always strive at Academic Resources to use only the amount of time that we need for each student. Everybody comes in differently, a different kind of places in their knowledge. So which is why we meet with them personally, which is why we ask them a lot of times to take a sim test, because we want to make sure that what we do is we help that specific individual. But If you want to cut down that time, let the school work do a lot of that work for you in freshman year, in sophomore year, so that by the time you get to the methodological standardized tests, you and your students, especially the students, will be a lot less stressed, and the road will be a lot smoother. And also we can just go in and concentrate on strategies and methods and creating a process for them to go in and maximize their potential. It's a bit of a shame to use a company like ours to teach them how to read. And as always, if you have any questions or if you have any need of clarification about anything you hear in this video or any of the advice that we give or anything you see on our website, please feel free to contact us. We're here to help. We're here to find solutions, not just on tests, but also with these periods of time when there's a lot to do and very short time to do them. And we have, since 1990, we've done our best to simplify things for our clients. It's what makes us happy. So reach out. You can call us. You can shoot us an email. If you're watching this video on one of our social platforms, feel free to comment. We want to engage in a conversation. We want to give good advice, and we want to learn from you. What is it that concerns you, and how can we be of help? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.